Flames and screams. The sky was burning. Explosions tore across the battlefield, shaking the earth like thunder. Fire rained from broken ships above, and the ground was littered with smoke, metal, and bodies. Human soldiers shouted through the chaos, their voices lost in the roar of war machines. Aliens screamed in their strange voices, their weapons cutting bright lines through the night. In the middle of this storm stood Captain Eric, a human soldier. His armor was scorched, his weapon heavy. In his hands. Around him, his squad ran, fired, and ducked for cover. Orders came through his comms, but his ears rang so badly he barely heard them. And then he saw it, through the smoke. In the broken wreckage of a downed alien transport, he noticed movement. At first, he thought it was another soldier. But then, he heard a sound weak, high-pitched trembling. It was the cry of a child. Eric froze. His breath caught in his throat. Inside the burning wreckage, trapped under twisted metal, was a small alien girl. She was no taller than his chest, her skin faintly glowing like silver light, her eyes wide with terror. She was helpless, surrounded by flames and broken steel. The battlefield seemed to fall silent for him. His squad kept shouting, the enemy. Kept firing, but Eric's eyes locked on the child. "Captain, fall back!" His comm crackled. "You're too exposed." He didn't move. He didn't even blink. His instincts told him to run, to obey orders, but something stronger pulled. At him, this was not a soldier, not an enemy. This was a child alone crying, trapped in hell. Eric's boots moved before he even made the decision. He sprinted across the field, weaving between blasts of plasma fire. Explosions thundered around him, sending dirt and fire into the air. Bullets hissed past, one grazing his shoulder. But he kept running, his eyes fixed on the wreck. The alien girl reached out a trembling hand, as if begging for help. Eric leapt over a burning beam, then crashed into the wreckage. Flames licked at his armor, heat burning his skin beneath. Air was choking with smoke. He coughed hard, his eyes stinging, but he pushed deeper inside. The child was pinned under heavy metal. She whimpered softly, her voice filled with pain and fear. "I've got you," Eric said, his voice low but steady. Even though she couldn't understand his words, she looked at him with desperate hope. He dropped his weapon and grabbed the wreckage. It was hot enough to sear his gloves, but he ignored the pain. He pushed. The metal groaned, heavy as stone. His muscles shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. The battlefield outside thundered louder. He was running out of time. For a moment, it seemed impossible. The wreckage refused to move. Eric gritted his teeth, his body screaming with pain. Then, with one final roar, he heaved the metal aside. The child gasped. Free at last. She tried to crawl, but her legs trembled. Without hesitation, Eric scooped her into his arms. She was light, fragile, her small hands clutching at his chest. Plate. And then he heard the sound he dreaded, enemy reinforcements. Through the smoke and flames, alien soldiers appeared. Their eyes locked on him, on the girl in his arms. For a moment, they hesitated, stunned by the sight of a human cradling one of their young. Then their weapons rose. Eric's cum screamed again. "Captain, retreat now. You won't survive this." He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled the girl closer, shielding her with his own body. Plasma fire lit up the wreck, blasting metal and dirt around him. He ducked low, heart pounding, every nerve screaming danger. He could run. He could leave her. He could survive. But Eric knew if he let her die, then he would lose more than his life. He would lose his humanity. So he stayed. The alien girl buried her face in his chest, shaking with fear. Eric tightened his grip, his mind racing for a way out. But everywhere he looked, fire, enemies, death. The battlefield roared louder, and in that storm of flames and screams, one human made his choice. He would not let the child die. Even if it cost him everything. The impossible rescue. The battlefield shook with every blast. Smoke rose in thick black clouds, covering the stars above. Eric pressed his back against a broken wall, holding the alien child tightly in his arms. Plasma bolts sizzled past, striking the ground and throwing sparks around him. The girl was trembling, her small glowing skin flickering faintly, as if her very life was fading. She clung to his chest plate, her wide eyes full of fear. Eric's COMM crackled again. "Captain, do you copy? You're surrounded. Leave the wreckage now." He switched the channel off. Orders didn't matter. Not anymore. Eric looked at the girl. Her body was weak, her breathing shallow. She would not survive long in the open fire. He had to move. He adjusted his grip and sprinted across the ruined ground. Every step felt like running through fire. Enemy soldiers shouted, their voices sharp and alien. Plasma fire rained from above. A blast hit nearby, throwing him forward. He landed hard, the girl still in his arms. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself up, ignoring the blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. The girl whimpered, her voice weak, almost like a whisper. She spoke words he didn't understand, but her eyes were clear pleading, begging him not to leave her. Eric clenched his jaw. "I won't," he muttered. He looked around for cover. His weapon was still lying near the wreck, too far to reach. The only option was a half-collapsed structure nearby. If he could make it there, maybe he could buy time. He ran again, weaving. Through smoke. Enemy fire chased him, hot bolts striking just inches away. One hit the ground behind him, throwing dirt and shrapnel that cut into his back. He stumbled, nearly falling, but kept going. Finally, he crashed into the broken building. Dust and ash rained from above. He crouched in the corner, pulling the girl close. For a moment, silence. His heart pounded in his ears. Then shadows moved. 3 alien soldiers stepped into the ruin, weapons raised. Their glowing eyes fixed on him. Eric's breath caught. He had nothing but his hands. No weapon, no shield. Only the child. The soldiers froze. Their weapons trembled, not from fear, but from confusion. Their gazes shifted from him to the girl in his arms. Their expressions changed. They looked shocked, almost afraid. The girl whimpered again, reaching a tiny hand toward them. But instead of lowering their weapons, the aliens shouted in their strange tongue. Eric understood one thing. They wanted the child back, but he also saw their fear. Not fear of him, fear of her. Why? His thoughts were cut short as one soldier aimed. Directly at his head, reflexes kicked in. Eric rolled aside, grabbing a broken metal pipe from the ground. He swung hard, knocking the weapon aside. Plasma fire burst, striking the wall instead of his chest. He tackled the soldier, slamming the pipe into his armor. The alien fell back with a roar. Another soldier rushed forward. Eric kicked a loose block of stone, hitting the alien's legs. The soldier stumbled, giving him just enough time to grab the child and dive behind cover. The last soldier shouted into his cum. More reinforcements would come. Eric knew he had seconds, maybe less. He looked down at the girl. She clutched his uniform, her small eyes wet with tears. She whispered again, voice shaking. This time, her tone was urgent, almost like she was trying to guide him. She pointed weakly toward the far side of the ruin, toward a narrow gap in the wall. Eric didn't hesitate. He tightened his grip on her and ran. Plasma bolts slammed into the wall around him, showering sparks and fire. He pushed through the gap, scraping his armor against jagged stone. and fell into a dark alley on the other side. Breathing hard, he pressed his back to the wall. He listened shouts behind him, weapons charging. They were close. Too close. He needed a miracle dot, and then the ground shook dots somewhere deeper in the battlefield. Heavy artillery thundered. The explosion rattled the ruins, knocking dust into the air. The alien soldiers were distracted, their shouts lost in the chaos. Eric seized the chance. He darted into the smoke-filled streets, moving as fast as his legs would carry him. His body burned with pain, but he didn't stop. The girl clung to him tightly, whispering soft words he still couldn't understand. But there was something in her tone, something that felt like trust. Behind him, the battlefield screamed with fire and death. Ahead of him, the unknown waited. He didn't know if he could save her. He didn't know if he could even survive. But one thing was certain. He would not let go. No matter the cost. Humanity's gamble. The night was alive with fire. Buildings cracked and fell. The ground shook with the constant thunder of battle. Eric moved through the ruins, his body aching, his breath ragged. In his arms, the alien child clung tightly, her small body trembling against his chest. Every few steps, he looked over his shoulder. Enemy searchlights cut through the smoke. Voices echoed in their strange alien tongue. They were hunting him. Not his squad, not his army. Him and the child. He pressed himself against a broken wall, his chest rising and falling fast. His vision blurred from exhaustion, but he kept moving. He had no choice. If he stopped, they would both die. The girl stirred. She lifted her small hand and touched his chin, her glowing fingers faint against his soot-covered face. She spoke again in her strange language, soft but urgent. Eric shook his head. "I don't understand," he whispered. His voice was rough, broken by smoke and dust. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She pointed toward the east, beyond the burning wreckage. Eric frowned. She was guiding him. But how? Why did she trust him, a human, a soldier of the enemy? Before he could think further, his comm sparked to life again. "Captain Eric, where are you?" "Report." He hesitated. His squad didn't know what he carried. If he told them, they might order him to leave the child behind. He switched the comms off. Silence. His boots splashed through puddles of ash and blood. The battlefield stretched endless before him. He knew he couldn't keep running forever. He needed to make a choice. And then the shadows moved. 5 alien soldiers appeared at the end of the ruined street, their weapons raised. Their eyes locked on him and on the girl. Their voices rang out, demanding in their language. Eric's heart pounded. He shifted the girl higher in his arms, his stance defensive. He had no weapon, no support. He could only stand between them and her. The soldiers didn't fire immediately. They hesitated. Their glowing eyes flickered between fear and confusion. One of them shouted something, his tone sharp, commanding. The girl whimpered, burying her face in Eric's chest. And in that moment, Eric understood. The soldiers were afraid. Not of him, not of the battle. Of her. Why? What was she? Eric's mind raced. If she was so important, then saving her meant more than just protecting a child. It meant protecting a secret the aliens wanted hidden. A gamble. Eric tightened his hold and stepped back slowly. His boots crunched on the broken ground. The soldiers raised their weapons higher. He whispered to the girl, "Hold on." Then he turned and ran. Plasma bolts lit up the night. Walls shattered around him. He zigzagged through debris, each step a fight against pain and exhaustion. The girl clung tighter, her cries lost in the thunder of gunfire. He burst into another alley, heart hammering. His lungs burned. His legs felt heavy. He couldn't outrun them forever. He needed to decide escape with her, or fight and die here The girl tugged at his armor, whispering again. Her small hand pointed downward toward the cracked ground, where a hidden hatch was half buried under rubble. Eric blinked. How did she know? He kicked away stones and pulled the hatch open. A dark tunnel yawned below, cold air rushing out. Without thinking, he jumped in, pulling the hatch closed above him. Darkness swallowed them. His boots splashed in shallow water. The tunnel stretched ahead, dim lights flickering along the walls. It smelled of rust and damp earth. The girl looked up at him, her glowing skin casting faint light in the dark. Her small lips trembled as she spoke again. He still didn't understand her words, but he understood her fear and her trust. He crouched low, setting her gently on her feet. She wobbled, but stayed close, gripping his hand tightly. "Who are you?" he whispered. His voice echoed in. "The tunnel. Why are they so afraid of you?" The girl didn't answer. She only looked at him with eyes that seemed far too old for her small body. Then, faint footsteps echoed behind them. The enemy had found the hatch. They were coming. Eric clenched his fists. His mind raced. He couldn't outrun them forever. He couldn't keep hiding. He looked at the girl again. If she was truly important, then saving her meant saving more than just one life. It could change the entire war. It was a gamble. A human gamble. And Eric was willing to risk everything. The chase through fire. The tunnel stretched endlessly into darkness. Water dripped from broken pipes, echoing like faint whispers. Eric's boots splashed in the shallow water as he guided the alien child forward, her small glowing hand gripping his tightly. Behind them, faint voices echoed alien soldiers entering the hatch. Their footsteps were heavy, their weapons charged. They were hunting him. Eric's breath came fast, every step harder than the last. His body screamed with exhaustion, but he couldn't stop. Not now. The girl tugged at his hand, pointing deeper into the tunnel. Somehow she seemed to know the way. Her glowing skin lit their path, faint but steady, like a living lantern. Eric whispered, "You're leading me." To what? The girl didn't answer. She only kept moving, pulling him forward. Suddenly, a bright plasma blast ripped through. The tunnel wall behind them. Stone shattered, water sprayed. The aliens had caught up. Eric threw himself forward, shielding the girl with his body. Sparks rained around them as more bolts filled the tunnel. "Run!" he growled, lifting the girl into his arms again. He sprinted through the tunnel, the water splashing high, the echoes of pursuit growing louder. The tunnel bent sharply, leading into a wider chamber. Rusted machines stood like forgotten skeletons. Old human tech, broken and abandoned from an earlier war. Eric ducked behind one of the machines, gasping for air. He pressed the girl close to his chest, his heartbeat racing. Footsteps thundered closer. Shadows moved in the tunnel behind them. The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes wide. She spoke again, her voice urgent, pointing toward the far wall of the chamber. Eric followed her gaze. A metal door, half buried in rubble, stood there. With no time to think, he ran. His muscles ached, but he pushed forward, shoving debris aside with his free hand. He slammed his shoulder into the door. It groaned but didn't move. The footsteps drew closer. Alien voices shouted. Eric growled, throwing his weight against the door again. It screeched, metal grinding. Finally, with one last desperate shove, it swung open. He slipped inside, dragging the girl with him, and pulled it shut just as plasma bolts lit up the chamber behind them. Darkness again. But this time, silence. Eric leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. The girl clung to his chest, trembling. Then a faint hum filled the room. Eric froze, his hand tightening on the girl. Lights flickered to life above him. The room glowed pale blue. And there, In the center stood something that made Eric's breath stop. Machine. Ancient. Vast. Its surface covered in strange carvings that pulsed faintly with light. The girl slipped from his arms and walked toward it. Her glowing hand touched the machine, and the carvings brightened instantly. The entire chamber seemed to come alive. Eric's eyes widened. What is this? The girl looked back at him. For the first time, he saw something in her expression, not just fear. Determination. Her lips moved, speaking words he couldn't understand. But somehow, deep in his chest, he felt their meaning. Safe. Hope. Before he could respond, the door behind them shuddered. The aliens were cutting through. Sparks flew as plasma torches tore into the metal. Eric's instincts roared. They had only seconds. He grabbed a rusted weapon from the floor, an old human rifle, long abandoned. He checked the power cell. Dead. Useless. The girl pressed her glowing hands against the machine again. Light spread across the walls, brighter, stronger, humming like a heartbeat. The ground shook slightly beneath them. Eric realized with shock. Machine was not dead. It was waking up. The girl turned to him, her small voice rising with urgency. She pointed at the weapon, then at the machine. He didn't understand till the weapon in his hand flickered, its dead cell glowing faintly with power again. The machine was recharging it. Eric's eyes widened. He gripped the rifle tight, feeling energy pulse through it. For the first time since the battle began, he had a chance. The door burst open. Alien soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Eric didn't hesitate. He fired. The blast roared, bright and powerful. The first alien fell instantly. The others hesitated, shocked by the sight of human technology revived by the strange machine. Eric moved fast, firing again, every shot fueled by the machine's energy. Sparks lit up the chamber, smoke filling the air. The girl crouched near. The machine, her glowing hands steady, her eyes focused. She was feeding it, controlling it, keeping it alive. Eric fought with everything he had, his muscles burning, his vision sharp with fury. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for her. When the last alien fell, silence returned. The chamber glowed faintly, the machine humming softly. Eric stood trembling, smoke rising from the weapon. He looked at the girl, who stared back at him with tired, glowing eyes. For the first time, she smiled. Eric dropped to one knee, breathing hard. "Who are you?" he whispered, but deep down, he already knew. She wasn't just a child. She was something far greater. And protecting her meant protecting the future itself. The last stand the chamber was quiet now, filled only with the faint hum of the awakened machine. Eric leaned against the wall, chest rising and falling fast, his weapon still warm in his hands. The alien child stood near the glowing carvings, her small hands pressed against the surface. Her light was dimming. She was exhausted. Eric wiped the blood from his forehead. His body ached, every bone screaming for rest. But he knew the silence would not last. The enemy would come again. More soldiers. More fire. He moved closer to the girl. Her breathing was heavy, her glowing eyes tired but focused. "You're not just a child," Eric muttered. "You're something they fear, something they want." The girl looked at him, her lips moving softly. He couldn't understand the words, but he caught the meaning in her eyes. She wasn't just asking him to protect her. She was asking him to fight until the end. Before Eric could speak, the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Distant roars filled the tunnels. The enemy was coming again. Eric gripped his weapon tightly. The revived rifle hummed with energy, stronger now, as if the machine itself was breathing life into it. He turned back to the girl. "Stay behind me," he said, "no matter what happens." She didn't move. Instead, she pressed her glowing hands deeper into the machine. The carvings spread wider across the walls, the light pulsing like veins of fire. The hum grew louder, deeper. Shaking the chamber itself, Eric's eyes widened. The machine wasn't just a power source. It was preparing something. The door to the chamber burst open. This time, not just soldiers. Larger figures stormed in armored beasts of war, there, weapons glowing like suns. Eric braced himself. He fired. The blast roared through the chamber, striking the first armored alien. Its shield cracked, sparks flying. Eric fired again, pushing forward, every shot shaking his body. The beasts answered. With fire. Plasma bolts filled the air, explosions tearing chunks from the walls. The chamber trembled under the storm. Eric dove behind cover, the girl still pressing against the machine. He peeked out, firing, his weapon glowing brighter each time. He moved with fury, refusing to back down. One beast fell, its armor shattered. Another roared, charging. Eric rolled aside, firing point-blank into its chest. The blast tore through it, throwing it back. But there were too many. For every one he struck down, 2 more entered. The air was choking with smoke and fire. Eric's mind raced. He couldn't hold them all. Not forever. Then the machine screamed. Light erupted across its surface. The ground shook violently, cracks spreading through the chamber. The girl's glow intensified, her small body trembling as if the machine was draining her strength. Eric shouted, "Stop! You'll kill yourself." But she didn't stop. Her glowing eyes met his, and in that single look, he understood. This was her purpose. The machine roared like a storm. Energy surged into the walls, through the floor, into Eric's weapon. The rifle pulsed, brighter than any human weapon had ever burned. Eric rose from cover, his eyes blazing with determination. He fired, and the chamber itself seemed to shake with the force. Beasts fell one by one, their armor cracking under the storm of fire, but the enemy kept coming. Eric fought like a man possessed, every shot fueled by the machine, by her. His body burned, his muscles tearing, but he didn't stop. Not while she still stood. The last of the beasts roared and charged, its massive weapon glowing. Eric met it head on. He pulled the trigger once, twice, 3 times. The blasts tore through the beast's armor, its body falling in a thunder of sparks and smoke. Silence. Eric staggered, dropping to one knee. His chest heaved, sweat dripping into his eyes. The chamber glowed faintly, dust and smoke swirling in the air. The girl collapsed beside the machine, her small body weak, her glow fading. Eric crawled to her, lifting her gently into his arms. "No," he whispered, his voice cracked. "You can't stop now. Not after all this." Her eyes fluttered open, faint light flickering within them. She reached up with trembling fingers, touching his cheek. Her lips moved, and though he didn't know the words, he understood the feeling. "Thank you." Eric's throat tightened. He held her closer, his hands trembling. The machine hummed softer now, as if resting. The walls still glowed, faint but alive. Eric looked down at her, his heart heavy with fear. She was the key. The enemy feared her for a reason. And if she died here, all of this, his fight, his pain, would be for nothing. He swore silently. He would not let her die. Not while he still had breath. Above them, the ground shook again. Louder this time. The battle outside was far from over. And Eric knew the last stand had only just begun. The price of survival smoke drifted through the chamber, thick and bitter. Eric held the child in his arms, her glow fading with each second. Her breathing was shallow, her small body trembling against him. The machine hummed quietly now, its light dimmer. It had given everything to power the fight, but it had also drained her. Eric's heart pounded. He looked at her fragile form, then at the machine. "You're connected to it," he whispered. "It's keeping you alive or killing you." Her glowing eyes opened weakly. She looked at him with something like trust, as if telling him silently, "Don't give up." The ground shook violently. Dust rained down. From the tunnels above came a deep, metallic roar, louder than anything before. Eric's stomach turned cold. Something far bigger was coming. He placed the girl gently on the floor, resting her against the machine. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll handle whatever comes next." But even as he spoke, he knew his strength was nearly gone. His weapon hummed faintly, energy low. His arms ached. His body felt like it would break with one more fight. The tunnel entrance glowed red, molten sparks spilling through as the enemy cut their way in again. This time, Eric didn't see soldiers or beasts. He saw shadows of something larger, machines of war. Walkers, siege units. He grit his teeth. He couldn't stop those. "Not alone, Dot." Then the girl stirred. Her glowing hands pressed against the machine again. The carvings lit up, brighter than before, though her small body shook violently from the strain. Eric rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. "Stop, you'll burn yourself out." But she looked up at him with fire in her eyes. Not fear, not weakness. A silent command. "Let me do this." The machine roared. Energy surged through the walls, the ground trembling like a living heart. The rifle in Eric's hands pulsed brighter, fully charged again. But that wasn't all. The entire chamber shifted. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing ancient weapons long buried. Cannons hummed to life. Drones unfolded from the ceiling, glowing blue as they powered up. Eric's eyes widened. This wasn't just a machine, Dot. It was a fortress. The tunnel exploded, open as alien war machines stormed inside. Their cannons glowed, their claws scraping the stone. The girl cried out, her glow blazing as she poured her strength into the fortress. The chamber itself answered. Cannons roared. Drones screamed into the air, firing beams of light. The ground shook as the fortress unleashed firepower not seen in centuries. Eric charged into the storm, firing his rifle with deadly precision. Beams of light streaked past him, striking the enemy. Explosions ripped through the chamber, shaking stone and steel like it was chaos. Fire, smoke, light. The enemy screamed as the fortress crushed them. But every second, Eric saw the girl grow weaker. Her glow flickered, her small body leaning heavily against the machine. He realized the truth. The fortress ran because of her. She was its heart, its power source. And every blast drained her life. Eric's chest tightened. He wanted to scream. "No," he growled, firing again. "Not like this." He fought harder, his shots tearing through alien armor. His voice roared over the chaos, echoing with fury. The last of the war machines fell, their bodies smoking and broken. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the fortress and the shallow breaths of the child. Eric dropped to his knees beside her. Her glow was faint now, her eyes half closed. He shook his head. "You saved us. But you're killing yourself." The carvings on the machine flickered. The fortress began to shut down, its drones collapsing, its cannons dimming. The girl had given too much. Eric pulled her into his arms, his eyes burning. "I swore I wouldn't let you die." "I meant it." He looked around the chamber, desperate. There had to be another way. Something left behind by whoever built this place. His eyes caught a faint light on the far wall of pod, hidden in the shadows. A capsule, its glass cracked but intact. Carrying her, he stumbled toward it. The pod hummed faintly, its system still alive. Symbols glowed across its surface. Eric pressed his hand against it. The pod opened with a hiss. Inside was a cradle, glowing with soft blue light. He looked at the girl. Her weak eyes opened, staring at the pod. For the first time, she looked afraid. Eric whispered, "This can save you. You'll survive in here." She shook her head weakly, her hand clutching his shirt. She didn't want to leave him. His throat tightened. "I'll find you. I swear. But if you stay out here, you'll die. And I can't let that happen." Tears burned his eyes as he placed her inside the pod. She reached up, touching his face one last time. Her lips moved softly. "Don't forget me." The pod sealed. The glow inside grew stronger, wrapping her in light. Her small body relaxed, her glow steady again. Eric pressed his forehead against the glass, his hand resting there. "I'll come back for you. I swear it." The fortress fell silent, its power fading completely now. But the pod remained alive, glowing like a heartbeat in the dark dot above them. The ground shook again. The war outside was not finished. Eric stood, slowly gripping his rifle. His eyes burned with fury. "They want you?" he muttered, looking back at the pod. "They'll have to go through me first." He turned toward the tunnel, ready for whatever came next. The fire that shook the stars. The pod glowed faintly in the corner of the chamber, pulsing like a steady heartbeat. Inside, the alien child slept, safe for now, her glow calm and unbroken. Eric stood in front of it, weapon in hand, his body trembling with exhaustion. Smoke drifted through the cracks in the stone, and the ground shook again as enemy forces gathered above. They weren't finished. He wiped the sweat from his face, forcing his tired body to stand tall. He had promised her. He had promised to keep her safe. And he would not break that promise, not while he still had breath in his lungs. The tunnel glowed red as the enemy breached again. This time, a sound was deafening thousands of footsteps. Armored soldiers marching, machines grinding, voices shouting in an alien tongue. Eric gripped his weapon tighter. His throat was dry, but his voice came out steady. "Come on, then. Let's finish this." The first wave stormed in. Eric fired, the rifle blasting with a fury that shook the walls. One alien fell, then another. He moved like fire itself, his body screaming, but his will unbroken. Explosions tore through the chamber as the enemy pushed forward. Eric dove for cover, rolled, and fired again. The rifle hummed with unnatural power, still linked to the machine, still carrying the last of its ancient strength. But for every soldier he struck down, more came. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Eric knew he couldn't hold forever. His eyes darted to the pod. The child slept peacefully, her glow untouched by the chaos. He clenched his teeth. He couldn't let them reach her. Not one step closer. The enemy brought in war machines again, tall walkers, their cannons glowing. Eric fired at them, his blasts tearing chunks from their armor, but it wasn't enough. The walkers advanced. Their weapons aimed at the pod. Rage filled his chest. He stood in the open, no longer hiding, and charged forward. He fired again and again, every shot tearing through enemy ranks. Plasma bolts scorched his armor, cutting across his side, burning his skin, but he didn't stop. The first walker fell, its legs collapsing in fire. Eric roared, his voice echoing like thunder. He felt no fear, only fury, but his body was breaking. He staggered, blood running down his arm. His breaths came in sharp gasps. Still, he stood tall. The second walker raised its cannon, aiming directly at the pod. Eric's eyes widened. He had no time, no strength. Only one choice. He ran with the last of his strength. He sprinted across the chamber, firing every shot he had left. His rifle blazed, burning brighter than ever before, tearing holes. Through armor. The walker fired. Eric dove in front of the pod. The blast struck him full in the chest. The chamber exploded with light. For a moment, there was silence. Then the machine, the ancient fortress, answered. Eric's sacrifice, his defiance, triggered something deep inside it. The carvings across the walls blazed one final time. The fortress roared with ancient fury, its energy flowing not from the girl now, but from Eric himself. His body glowed with the same light she carried. His blood, his will, his rage, it became fire. The chamber shook violently. Cannons unfolded. Again, drones screamed to life. Energy poured into Eric's weapon, brighter than a star. With one last roar, Eric rose to his feet. His chest burned, his armor cracked, but he stood like a giant. He fired. The blast ripped through the walkers, tearing them apart in a storm of fire and light. Soldiers fell screaming, their weapons shattered. The chamber itself erupted with energy. A wave of fire sweeping through the tunnels, burning the enemy to ash. The ground above cracked open. Light shot into the sky, pillar so bright it could be seen from orbit. The alien fleets circling above froze, their ships watching in horror as the world below shook. The fire spread through the stars, a warning, a message. Humanity had awakened something they could never control. Inside the chamber, silence returned. Smoke drifted. The fortress went dark. Eric collapsed to his knees. His vision blurred. His weapon dimmed. He turned his head, looking at the pod. The girl slept safely, untouched. A faint smile crossed his face. "You're safe now," he whispered, his voice broken. "That's all that matters." His body fell still, but the glow lingered in his chest, faint, but unyielding. The pod pulsed brighter, as if hearing him. The child's glow strengthened, steady and alive. And though Eric's body lay motionless, his fire lived on within her. Battlefield above would remember this day. The galaxy would remember the man who stood alone, who threw himself into fire to save a helpless child. And from that moment on, the stars would never forget the name of humanity. The end.